Hi, I'm Quinn and I'm autistic. Welcome to Autistic. Look up autism anywhere. Online, in a library, even asking an expert face to face. And one of the first defining points you'll come across pretty much every time relates to how well, or maybe I should say how badly, we are perceived to deal with change. It's undoubtedly true that a level of difficulty with unexpected change and a preference for established routines is something I share with many, perhaps most, autistic people. We're not alone in that, though. Even those who consider themselves thrill seekers still have a place in their hearts for the familiar, the comforts of home and hearth, of safety and succour. Every one of us, autistic or not, can relate to both the anxiety of impending change and the easy comfort of the familiar. Yet as autists, we're told the way we handle such feelings is problematic. We are, apparently, too afraid of one and too settled in the other. My task in writing about such differences is to examine what separates the autistic experience of change from that of everyone else. What distinguishes it so much that our reaction to change gets mentioned in every description of autism you can find. It's at the forefront of my mind right now, because my own life has been in a state of flux for quite a while. I've been faced with a number of crises, each one involving an unexpected and unwanted change in my life, and along with it, a major disruption to one or more of those routines I've relied on. So, my first step on exploring the autistic relationship with change is to examine my own response to recent changes in my life. This video is partly an introduction to the subject of how we as autistic people deal with change, but also an update on where I've been and where I want to take this channel. So if you're curious about why I took such a long break or what I have planned, definitely stay tuned. If you don't want to listen to me waffle on about how a series of crises completely upended my routines and drastically shifted the entire direction of my life, then I'll pop a link to the first part of the broader series on autistic change and routine up here once I've made it. I'll recap enough of this video to make that work as an effective part 1, so consider this a prologue or preface of sorts. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade, they say. Like most aphorisms, there's wisdom there, but it lacks detail. You can't make lemonade with lemons alone. If life presented you with those metaphorical lemons along with a figurative water, symbolic sugar and a phlogiston-powered stove to cook them all up on, you might stand a chance. But in reality, we usually find ourselves with little more than lemons and hope. Now and again, even the lemons you're given are bad to start with, and that's kind of where I found myself a while back. At the start of 2018, after a period of relative stability, life lemons started popping up with increasing frequency. As the months grew towards a year and still carried that air of lemon-scented freshness, so more and more systems I relied on broke down, and new challenges arose to complicate all my solutions. Now, I'm a resourceful sort, so sticking with our citrusy metaphor, I keep a stock of ethereal sugar and water to hand in case of lemon attack. So I turned some of that negativity into something positive in the form of what you're watching now. Autistic is the lemonade I made from that initial batch of life-changing lemons. Since then, life carried on heaping on the challenges, but we faced them head-on. And whilst it was draining, it was also fulfilling to feel I was managing better than ever. I still had more of those intangible lemons than I had imaginary sugar and not enough time to boil them all up, whilst all the while fresh lemons were being added to the ever-growing fantastical pile. But I was still producing lemonade. Putting the metaphors aside for one moment, whilst I kept up the momentum amidst personal health battles, employment worries, deep-rooted family disputes and my wife's increasing need for care against a backdrop of political turmoil, a cost of living crisis and the odd pandemic, the cracks in my ability to cope were starting to show. As the channel started to get noticed, I was approached by more and more people asking for my assistance or participation in various projects, most of which I had to decline because I just didn't have the time to commit. With my day job becoming increasingly difficult and my domestic responsibilities creeping up as my wife's ME robbed her of more and more energy, I started to struggle with the weekly schedule I'd set myself for videos. It wasn't too long before that schedule started to slip, adding to an already substantial load of anxiety, and I was looking very seriously at some difficult choices. The metaphorical lemons had piled so high I was losing hope of ever reducing it, when life intervened again with another hammer blow. My dad died. That hit me in ways I hadn't expected, and itself reopened a number of wounds and disputes in the wider family. That's when the rotten lemons started hitting, the ones no one can make lemonade from. Despite that, I still managed to make a few videos, the first couple being related to Dad's passing and how it impacted me at the time. I've more to say on grief in the coming months, so keep an eye out. Then, in February, I released the first of 3 planned videos about PDA, pathological demand avoidance. I knew I wasn't going to be able to go back to weekly videos just then, but maybe I could manage one a month, at least until I could make a significant dent in the mountain of lemony troubles still hovering in the background. Whilst Autistic has been from the beginning a labour of love, it's always had to take second place behind the practical concerns of everyday life. Mrs. A has long been too disabled to work in any capacity, so I've been our sole breadwinner for over a decade, as well as caring for her needs and keeping house, and those have to be my priorities. Once I'd earned the bread, served the bread and cleaned the crumbs afterwards, there was time for Autistic, but not before. I knew that things would have to change, and I was praying that the next time event surprised us, it would be something positive, something that would spell an upturn in our fortunes. If it didn't, I might have to give up on Autistic altogether, and I desperately didn't want to do that. Autistic has been in many ways as important for me as it's been for the people who've told me they found comfort, validation or insight watching it. It allows me a creative avenue which scratches all the right aut itches and opens up opportunities for growth and learning. That need to learn and build upon skills and knowledge isn't by any means a uniquely autistic characteristic. It's one I know many of us relate to hard. And if I can create something tangible and worthwhile whilst learning, then all the better. More than anything else, it satisfies a part of my soul that means more to me than I can express. It fulfills my need to help, to assist, to make a positive contribution to other people's lives. Every time I read a comment from someone whose life has been enriched, even by the tiniest amount, it makes me smile. Each and every glint of light someone tells me they've seen after watching an Autistic video is another mote twinkling in the starscape of hope I hold for a better future. But in the period following the release of When No Doesn't Mean No, it was starting to look like even one video a month might not be achievable. All my other obligations were taking up so much of my time and energy that I saw only 2 directions to travel, and just one appeared to be open to me. My social media presence dried up too, partly because of lack of time, but also because of how quickly it eroded whatever emotional defences still remained on the shores of my sanity. It didn't help that the one social media site I felt kind of comfortable with was Twitter, and that's not the place it used to be. I couldn't avoid it any longer. There was no sustaining both a full-time job and Autistic. And Autistic wasn't paying the bills, so it would have to be the one to go. Yes, if I'd have had more time, I could have taken on those jobs I'd turned down before, and given a few months I might have been able to turn it into something that would pay my way full-time. But time was quite literally an unaffordable luxury. I decided that I would try and finish the series on PDA. I wasn't happy to leave it as it was, and then draw the curtains on Autistic, even if it took me a year or two to do it. I may not ever add to that body of work again, but at least I could tie up the loose ends on the PDA strand, so I could leave something coherent behind. My part in the story would end, but the story would continue. It was a heartbreaking decision, but it was the right one. For all the good that Autistic could do, both for viewers and myself, I couldn't sustain it as things were. The last year had taken a heavy toll emotionally, mentally and physically. It's been nice that a few people have commented that I look well on my return, but whilst it's a nice compliment, the 70 or so pounds that I've lost in that time weren't by design. Mind you, I'm not in any hurry to put it back on. I'll class that as an unintentional win. No sooner had the decision been made to draw things to a close than life threw me a lemon so vast it threatened to crush me. For over 30 years I'd worked in the same industry in various different roles before settling into an office-based position for the last few. Since the pandemic, I'd been working from home doing various jobs with numbers, evaluations and forecasts, that kind of thing. My boss called me to what I thought was to be a routine video meeting, only for me to receive my marching orders. The business had decided that my services would no longer be required, so I was to be let go after a period of notice. To describe it as devastating wouldn't even remotely do it justice. If it were up to her, my wife would still be working and enjoying the rewarding career she studied and worked so hard for, but nature has robbed her of that, so it leaves me as the provider, and it's a responsibility I hold close to my heart. It's an obligation that transcends PDA and is so deeply ingrained into every fibre of who I am that any threat to my ability to live up to it instantly takes top priority. Like most of the lemons I've had come my way in recent years, it was through no fault of my own. I wasn't fired for poor work or disciplined for some incident. A corporate reorganisation designated my workload to others, so I was no longer required. Redundant. I was floored, knocked out for the count. For all the ups and downs of my life, I've never wanted for work or for praise for that work, and yet suddenly I found myself sucker-punched and flat out on the canvas. I've been here before, and this is where self-preservation usually kicks in. I swallow it up, accept that I've been bested, and consolidate what I have left. I go back to the safety of the routine and familiar, and learn the lessons punched into me by a world I'm not made for. This time is a little different, though. For once, life has given me more than just lemons to make the lemonade of the future with. I can go back to the day-to-day I've occupied for the last 30-odd years and give up on Autistic, something I've put years of love and effort into. Or I can take a gamble and try fighting back. After a lifetime of bloody noses from trying to play everything by a rulebook that doesn't appear to be even written for the game I'm playing, now, maybe, it's time to try a different approach. Instead of dragging my bloody and bruised frame to the corner to lick my wounds and concede defeat, I'm getting to my feet and squaring my shoulders to fight back. Why? Because of you. That is the collective you. The people who've watched my work and reached out to tell me how much it meant to them, who were finally able to put words to their thoughts, to make sense of that niggling doubt or build that bridge to someone who hadn't yet understood them. I don't like uncertainty. I'm not a gambler in the slightest. I've never placed a bet, never set foot in a bookmaker's or a casino. I don't even like competitive games. But even playing things by the rules that are drummed into us almost from birth, taking the safest, most reliable route available, has been fraught with hazards. So the path less trodden, the one shrouded in mist and darkness, has never been my chosen course. I've seen that there's light at the end of that path if I can reach it this time, though. If this world truly understood how much possibility there is locked up in autistic minds, all the peaks on those spiky skill sets, all those special interests, the incredible potential hiding behind the productivity of a truly aligned monotropic focus, there's no way I can imagine it would be left to waste in the way it is now. We so rarely get a chance to demonstrate it, though, and this may be my best and, at 53, probably my last chance to play to my strengths and prosper as a specialist rather than fail yet again as a lacklustre generalist. As of this point, November 2023, as I'm recording, I have a few months left to turn Autistic from a side project, a well-intentioned hobby if you like, into a means of making a living. There's enough in the bank to keep us going for a little while, but I need to be making a living soon, or I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board. I've got good reason to believe I can do it. Some of the projects I've been involved in since starting this channel were completely unexpected. I've been commissioned to write articles, I've helped employers with communication issues with employees, advised therapists and psychiatrists, and even consulted on a big studio movie. There's been other more conventional and obvious work too, speaking engagements, conferences and video editing mainly, all of which has felt far more worthwhile than any of the number shuffling I did in my day job. I've had to turn down more than I took on, but it all gives me hope. My patrons on here and the ever-growing viewer and subscriber numbers also encourage me to believe this can work. I think I can make a go of it outside the regular 9 to 5. But I don't imagine it'll be doing just one thing. I expect between YouTube revenues, patrons and commissioned creative or editing work I can make ends meet. If I'm to make a go of this as a career and get back to making videos on a regular basis, I need to keep the lights on here. And the more people who see my work, the better my chances. This channel is as much a showcase of what I can do as it is a source of entertainment or information. The 100+ videos here comprise a portfolio of sorts, which has already prompted offers of work, but the more people that see it, the better the chances that when the money runs out in a few months' time, there'll be ongoing income to replace it. I've a lot to do. Things I want to do with the website and long-held plans to beef up my Patreon offering. As of the next video, new content will be posted to patrons first before it's available on YouTube, and I've plans for more exclusive content there too. I need to take a long, hard look at all my analytics too and see what they can tell me to help me make this work. Operating a channel as a business is a lot different to what I'm used to. There's been practical changes too. What used to be our box bedroom is now a permanent office cum editing suite. And whilst my studio still has to do double duty as our dining area, we're in the process of reorganising the house to make this studio setup quicker and easier. I've also started the Peopling project, which you may have seen already. When you've spent as long as I have trying to work out how and why people keep telling you you're different, you learn a thing or two about what we all have in common as well, and Peopling aims to make use of that. I often refer to elements of psychology, sociology, history, philosophy and more in Autistic videos, so Peopling will look at all those autism-related but not autism-specific subjects in more detail. I'm hoping that content like that may appeal to a wider audience and get me closer to making a living out of this, but also some of those people might go on to watch some regular Autistic content too and help us build a few bridges in the process. At the moment, Peopling is being produced as part of this channel, but I'm toying with the idea of making it a dedicated sister channel. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd be interested to know. I wrote this script a few days after I uploaded the second video in the PDA series I mentioned earlier. The response to the channel releasing new content and the messages of support I received were both a relief and a boost of confidence. Thank you to all those of you who've gone out of your way to make it known how much this channel is appreciated and why it's worth the effort. So maybe you guys can help me a little if you feel up to it. I'm lucky that this channel has a high retention rate. That is, a good proportion of first-time viewers go on to subscribe and watch more content. But it's getting people to see it in the first place that can be a challenge. The majority of views come via YouTube's own algorithms, not from links on social media, but you might be able to help me shift that balance. Whilst I'm still getting back on my feet, I'm not feeling up to the whole social media thing again as yet. I'm still extremely emotionally tender, and I'm channeling that along with my social and creative energies into writing scripts. So, if you have a spare moment to do so, I'd like you to let someone else know about your favourite video or series on this channel. Post it on your social media and tag people in if you think they might be comforted, reassured, empowered, or simply entertained. Or give the website link, autistic.com, to someone you know face to face. The intent of this channel is both to help autistic people understand ourselves more succinctly and to nudge everyone else towards a better, more collaborative understanding of autistic thought and feeling. So there's no specific target demographic. Don't feel bad if you can't do that though. Maybe you don't feel you know enough people to make a difference. Or perhaps you're not safe to let people know you're autistic and linking my videos would look out of place. Maybe everyone you know is a close-minded git and there's no point in trying to open their eyes. I know that some of you will want to do it, but your executive function will let you down, so you'll never get round to it. Some will see it as an obligation which opens up its own set of barriers, and others won't be able to do so because they haven't yet been provided with sufficient communication tools or the cooperation required to make use of them. Some of you will share something though, and it all helps more than you know. It's simple mathematics at the end of it. The diagrams of how channels grow look a lot like family trees, every branch in the chain leading to several new branches of their own. I may question my own logic at taking such a huge gamble, but even in my absence, the channel's been growing and reaching new people, so I have an opportunity to grasp that momentum and harness it to launch the channel and myself towards new frontiers. I've also discovered that asking for something helps me to moderate my PDA anxiety to some degree. I've more to say on it when I make the third part of the PDA series, but amongst the tools that help me to manage my own experience of demand avoidance is reciprocity. I don't feel as much pressure from the obligation of fulfilling my audience expectations when I know that some of you will actively go out of your way to help me. It's not about the magnitude of the task undertaken that makes the difference in my personal social accounts. It's the kindness or the willingness to invest in the happiness, prosperity or success of another. It's social accounting on a different, less parochial scale than the tit for tat that most of us are used to. So, for now, expect a new video every fortnight or so, whilst I establish a new production line for new content. And I want to keep that as a baseline for the future. I think providing enough commissioned work comes my way, I should be able to sustain that for the foreseeable future. And who knows, I might be able to release more frequently if the channel picks up quickly and substantially enough. I need at least 10 times the current subscriber count for that to look possible, but then I'm slightly in shock that I've got this far. There's no words of wisdom here to sum up at the end. I'm autistic and I'm uncomfortable with rapid or unexplained changes, yet I've been subjected to change faster than my capacity to handle, which nearly finished me. Now I'm trying to flip it on its head to turn a life-shattering event into an opportunity for the change I actually want to happen. Writing this scared me, and reading it back now does too. I'll probably be really nervous when I upload it as well, but that's the nature of risk. I've always wanted this channel to reflect the absolute honesty and candour that characterises so many of us, but I don't usually show my vulnerability so much. I'm lucky that I have a few people who have confidence in me. My wife, my in-laws, even my old boss think that I can do this, but I'm autistic. I've lived over 50 years of an autistic life. How can I not have doubts? It makes me smile, though, to think that even in this single, for me, radical decision, raises questions about how we perceive and measure the autistic relationship with change and routine. Does my choice suggest that I'm rigid, resistant to change, so steadfast in my narrow, unimaginative, self-centred worldview that I think that I can force the world to accommodate me? Or am I embracing a huge shift in my life, exposing myself to risk and criticism, and making a radical departure from routine in the hope of building something better? I'm Quinn, and I'm autistic. It's been my privilege to have been allowed into your space and to be listened to. And with a fair wind and a hefty stroke of luck, I'll continue doing so for a long time to come. Thank you for watching. If you've already liked and subscribed and would like to support the channel more, then please follow the Patreon links in the description to pledge what you feel is fair and affordable to help keep the lights on here and the content keep flowing.